This episode of the Lawn Care Business Success podcast is brought to you by Bluehost. Try the #1 recommended web hosting provider. With plans starting at just $3.95 a month, you'll get a free domain, free site builder, easy one-click WordPress installs, and 24/7 support. But what's just as impressive as what you get is what you don't get, as there's no contracts, no hidden fees, and no gimmicks. Go check them out at lawncarebusinesssuccess.com/Bluehost. You're listening to the Lawn Care Business Success Podcast, the weekly show sharing proven methods and systems in marketing, equipment, and customer service, educational and motivational, to help make your lawn care business an overwhelming success. Now here's your host, Julio Tomei. Welcome, Lawn Care Nation, to another episode of the Lawn Care Business Success Podcast. I'm your host, Julio Tomei, and this is episode number 166, entitled Leaf Blowers, Handheld versus Backpack. Well, hello, everybody, and thanks again for joining me this week on another episode of the Lawn Care Business Success Podcast. Really appreciate you guys tuning in each and every week, as always, and as well for the questions, the comments, and the feedback you guys have been sending through. And just a little reminder there for you guys who have not submitted a review to iTunes. I would really appreciate you guys doing that. You can go to lawncarebusinesssuccess.com/reviews, and there'll be a link there. And if you're a iPhone user, you can now submit those podcast reviews directly from the podcasting app on your iPhone or iOS device. So that makes things a lot easier now. And for those of you who have left reviews in the past, like I said, I really do appreciate the time that it takes for you guys to go and do that, but it really does help the show out. So this week, hopefully you guys are all doing well. And as the summer season has fully winded down now, and we're, getting into the fall season, and the leaves are all starting to fall. I've been noticing on a bunch of my own lawns that the leaves are already starting to accumulate. Nothing too serious at the moment, enough that they're there and a bit of a mess, but still not enough where the mower, because I'm bagging predominantly, where the mower will can't handle them. So the mower's having no issues right now, picking up and bagging the leaves. So nothing too serious, but as the weeks obviously progress and move on, they will only get more and more serious, more and more of a issue where, I'll have to start adding some extra leaf cleaning charges to my customers' bills to be able to handle the leaves before the lawn can even be mowed. So last week we talked about some leaf cleaning tips for small lawns. And this week I wanted to get into, the difference for you new guys that are out there just starting out in the lawn care industry, in landscaping. You may be out there buying your first, pieces of equipment, and you're faced with the, should I get a backpack blower or should I get a handheld blower? So I'm going to talk about those two styles of leaf blower, what their advantages are, why you would want ultimately both of them, and in what situations each of them excels at. But before I do that, I just wanted to toss an idea out there for you guys. I've been thinking a bit lately about I've always been wanting to try out doing a YouTube live. And I've always thought about, okay, well, what would I talk about in a YouTube live? I started to think about some different ideas. And thought, well, one of the ideas I was tossing around in my mind was, if I did, a weekly podcast like I do, and then followed it up maybe a few days later with a YouTube Live where I would then discuss the topic of the podcast and could then have your feedback, your interaction, and we could have a discussion on that week's podcast episode, the topic, and you guys can, talk about what you guys think about it. You can, basically chime in with your 2 cents. That we can sort of just share ideas on that particular week's episode. So if that's something that you guys think you would be interested in, I'd love to hear from you. You can, leave a comment in the YouTube audio podcast version of this podcast episode. So head on over to YouTube. There'll be a link in the podcast show notes as well for this episode. And you can head over to the episode on YouTube and leave your comment there, and let me know if having a sort of weekly live, when possible. Obviously, I don't know if I'd be able to do it every single week, but I would certainly try, where we could have sort of a live discussion on the past week's episode topic. So if that's something that you guys think would interest you, I'm just sort of kicking around the idea right now. So I just want to hear some feedback from you guys if it's something that would interest you. Obviously, I would sort of announce it ahead of time of when it would happen, and then can kind of figure it out from then. Also comment on, what times of day or what days of the week you think doing a YouTube Live would work best. So yeah, if you guys want to do that, just let me know in the comments of the YouTube video for this podcast episode. All right, so I'm going to break for the podcast announcements, and then we'll get into this week's episode right after this. So stay tuned. Hey guys, if you have any questions or comments about the show, I'd love to hear from you. You can head on over to lawncarebusinesssuccess.com/contact. For you Instagram users out there, be sure to follow me at lawncarebusinesssuccess. And if you haven't checked out my videos yet, well, what are you waiting for? Be sure to subscribe to the Lawn Care Business Success YouTube channel. Now, I know you guys love listening to audio while you work as much as I do, so I've partnered up with Audible to offer you guys a free 30-day trial and 2 free audiobooks of your choice. There's no long-term commitments, and you can cancel anytime. And get this, even if you cancel during your free trial period, you still get to keep the 2 free audiobooks. It's a great way to try the service and to see if Audible is right for you. So why not give it a try? Head on over to lawncarebusinesssuccess.com/audible. Now back to the show. Okay, so this week's episode, I wanted to talk about the differences between having a handheld blower versus a backpack blower, why you would want either one, and in what situations they work. And this is predominantly because, obviously, if you're a seasoned veteran, if you've been in lawn care, then you will know the advantages of both of these machines. And you will have your own preferences on what you like, what you don't like, all that sort of stuff. A lot of you guys know already, if you follow me, what I use on a daily basis, and why I use it. But for you new guys out there who are just sorting it out, this is one of the questions I know when I was starting out, looking at these different pieces of equipment, and it seemed overwhelming. The price differences between handheld and backpack, and why you would want the 2 different types. So basically, I'm going to start with the handheld. Obviously, this is smaller blowers. You can get them with or without vacuuming mulching attachments. So there is some advantages to the vacuuming and mulching attachments as well for those. And for the better part of my lawn care career, when I did have or started using handheld blowers, I bought them predominantly because of that vacuuming feature. And I bought a Stihl SH56C model that had the vacuuming mulching attachment. And I used it predominantly for leaf cleanups and things like that. Just doing, or garden bed cleanups and stuff, cleaning out rock beds, things like that. They work fantastic for that. But, throughout that time from the beginning, when I started as a lawn care franchise, when I had a franchise company that I had bought that included a full equipment package. It came with a backpack blower, a brand new Stihl BR500 was the model that came in the package that I had. So right from the get-go, I was using a backpack blower. And all the while through using it, there were a few things with a backpack blower that I felt were not very efficient, that were quite annoying. And that was, for one, and partly has to do with the trailer setups and how you, your workflow. For me, with my equipment, it's always secured. So if I'm opening up my trailer door to take out a piece of equipment, I take it out, I close the trailer door, I lock it back up, and then I go and use the equipment. With a backpack blower, I found for the most part that, I'd have to open the trailer door. And on my trailer, I'm talking about, I have this ramp door on the side. And it has my 21-inch mower, it has my trimmer, and it would have the blower. And whatever else I could fit in there predominantly. In the back of my trailer, in sort of the dump bed section, I would have, if I was mowing, would be whatever large mower I was, using at the time. So I found the efficiency. I always thought, like, opening the side trailer door, pulling out this backpack blower, I'd have to set it on the ground, then I'd have to go close the door, lock it. I'd have to then put my foot on the back of the backpack blower to be able to hold it down while I pull the pull cord to get it started. Then pick it up, put it on my back, and then I could start walking to wherever I was going to blow off sidewalks, patios, driveways, all that sort of stuff. And I always thought while using it that a handheld blower seemed much more efficient. Not only just for the fact that I felt that I would be able to take it out of the trailer. I wouldn't even have to, with a small handheld blower in my situation, I wouldn't have to actually even open my ramp door completely to get it out, because the backpack blower was right there on the inside of the door. So I could just slightly open it, reach in, grab the backpack blower. I could put it on the fender of the trailer, and then with the other hand that was holding the ramp door, then just close the ramp door, lock it, grab the back or the handheld blower, walk to wherever I was going to go start to blow, and while I was walking, I could be pulling the cord and get it started. And I thought that just seemed so much more efficient. And I remember talking to one of the local dealers around here about blowers, and I mentioned that to him, and he said that makes a lot of sense. I've never, nobody's ever mentioned that to me, the efficiency of it, of the, a small handheld blower, in, starting it while you're walking and not having to set it down and all that sort of stuff, that can add up over the day when you times that by, the amount of clients that you have. And the more and more clients you have, those efficiencies really do start to add up. And to me, it just always made sense. When my equipment and my trailer finally, in 2016, as most of you guys know, the trailer and equipment got stolen. So I was forced to, the very next day, have to go quickly pick up some equipment so that I could continue working while I filled out insurance papers and all that sort of stuff. So I opted to, at that time, just get the handheld blower, that still 56 SH56C that got stolen. And I figured, you know what? It's obviously a lot cheaper to buy this right now out of pocket while I wait for insurance to pay out for the backpack blower and everything else. I also have to buy a brand new, Honda 21-inch mower. I have to buy a trimmer. So, it's a couple of 3 items that I wasn't expecting to have to go out and purchase today. So, I'll keep I'll save some money on the blower side and just replace just a handheld blower right now. And then when the insurance company pays me out, then I can go and buy the backpack blower. So I sort of was forced then at the time to start using the handheld blower for my daily lawn care, weekly maintenance of accounts. And just as I suspected, I found it to be way more efficient. So much so that, once the insurance actually paid out for the loss of all of the other equipment, including the backpack blower, I didn't even bother buying a backpack blower right away. I figured, I'll just wait and wait till leaf season comes, and then, I will purchase the backpack blower at that time. That I'm really enjoying using the handheld blower. So I continued throughout the season using that handheld blower. And once fall hit, again, I was just like, this machine is doing pretty good. It's taking a little bit longer to use the handheld blower, but none of my there's one client that I have that has a ton of leaves, but for the most part, with the majority of the other ones, the leaves aren't too overwhelming. So I was able to handle them with the handheld blower. So I continued using that handheld blower. And, I saw the difference there between, yes, a backpack blower when it comes to leaf season is a much, better suited machine versus a handheld blower. But for the weekly, lawn mowing only throughout the season, I just totally preferred using the handheld blower. And it wasn't until actually the following spring, when I was invited by Echo USA to go do that factory tour of their facility in Chicago, Illinois. And, they ended up sending me one of their backpack blowers for me to use and review. And that's when I actually started using a backpack blower again. And, it was a fantastic backpack blower. It's the 770 T model, tube throttle model, and a ton of power, yet very quiet, so to speak. It's not, it's hard to say. A lot of people say, and I've seen reviews of that, PB770T model, being, super quiet, people are saying and stuff. And I didn't find it like it was super like crazy quiet, like it was like you couldn't hear it. It's a loud machine, but I think the tone of the muffler is just different. It's not as whiny as your traditional backpack blower, so it's just a lot easier on your ears than a traditional blower. It's just a more soothing sound versus the very loud, whiny traditional blower sound. So it makes it a lot easier to use. So I used that for that spring of that year of 2017, and I just found that it's a fantastic blower, a ton of power, way more power obviously than a handheld blower, but it was overkill. just as I suspected, even using, back when I thought about the Still BR 500 that had gotten stolen. It was inefficient for me because for my particular route of just doing smaller residential houses, it was just as I suspected. I was, having to open the trailer, had to take this blower out, had to set it on the ground, had to close the trailer, lock it up, put my foot on it, get it started, lift it up, put it on my back. It was just a lot of unnecessary things where I was already now used to using the handheld blower of just, slightly opening the door, using the other hand to reach in, grab the blower, set it on the fender, didn't have to bend down, close the trailer door, lock it up, grab the blower, start walking, pull started as I was walking, and away I would go. Throughout that season, like I said, I was using that backpack blower as I had done for years and years and years previous with the Still blower. And, it just confirmed all of that thinking. Then later at the end of the summer, Echo ended up sending me a handheld blower. And this was the PB2520 handheld blower. And this was a handheld blower that does not come with any sort of vacuum or mulching attachment. It's strictly a handheld blower. It was a new product that they were introducing, and they were touting that it had a ton of power, that it was the most powerful handheld blower on the market. So, I stopped using the backpack blower so I could start using the handheld blower, and immediately I fell in love with it because partly, nothing to do with the fact that it was an Echo or anything like that, but it just that it fit my workflow better. It was back to using that very efficient piece of machinery for my specific uses, my specific case scenarios, the types of lawns that I do. With all of my clients, I'm servicing them on a weekly basis. And they're all residential homes, all smaller homes. So a handheld blower, it just fits perfectly for what I'm doing. Just so much easier to use. A lot of the time too, with my route and my lawns. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you may have seen photos in the past of me posting pictures of my truck and trailer parked and sort of pointing, down the street, down the block where the actual house I was going to, because some of the neighborhoods, the parking is so terrible that you have to sort of park wherever you can and walk with your equipment. And, having the handheld blower just makes this so much easier to be able to handle, because I can just take the handheld blower, I put it on top of the bag of my Honda HRC 216, and then I can, turn the mower on with the self-propel and just guide it with one hand while I carry my trimmer in the other hand, and that handheld blower just sits, on the bag there. I've done this previously with the backpack blower, but it was always just more cumbersome because you'd have the tube throttle kind of dangling there, getting in the way of your legs and stuff, and just was a lot more annoying, even though you were carrying it on your shoulders, which you would think would free up your hands and make things easier. It was actually more of an annoyance that way. The other thing then is I'd have this backpack blower that I'd have to set down on the ground while I'm mowing lawns. It was, it's bigger, it's more obvious sitting there, and I'd always worry with my headphones on and, mowing a lawn with my back facing or something that, somebody could swing by and grab it while I was, around the corner or something like that. Where the handheld blower is a lot smaller, I can, basically hide it. If I have to be out somewhere, I can put it behind some bushes or something a lot easier, and keep it sort of out of sight when I'm working on sort of busy roads or stuff like that. So I just fell in love with that particular handheld blower. The other thing was that their claims of it having or being the most powerful handheld blower on the market I felt were pretty justified. It had a ton more power. I remember actually taking the PB2520 Echo with my still SH56C, the replacement one that I had bought, and putting them side by side and running them and just feeling the torque in my hands. And the Echo model was so much more powerful, at least a quarter to maybe, a half, more powerful than that still model. It was just, fantastic, and it worked just awesome. So I've been, using that now machine as my day-to-day driver. I use that day in, day out. And in fact, the Echo, the big PB770T, the big backpack blower, which was their biggest model that they had until the last new one that they just released a few weeks back, and that they will have at this year's 2018 GIE to show off. The PB770 was their biggest model till that point. It sits in the garage for most of the year until the leaves are heavy enough. And still, the last few weeks, with the leaves just starting to fall, I think, maybe I should take the backpack blower with me. And I always, even if I plan it in advance, I always change my mind at the last minute and grab the handheld blower. It's just so much more efficient to use for me on that weekly basis, on those, sort of week to week lawns where I'm just doing the mowing. Now, of course, there will be a tipping point, where that efficiency of being able to just pull it out and start it while I'm walking and all that sort of stuff will then, you'll lose the advantage of that, because then, of course, regardless of how much power the handheld blower has, and it being, the most powerful handheld blower, it still does not have the power of a backpack blower. It doesn't, it's not even in that same league as that. Perfect for grass clippings, perfect for, the weekly sort of maintenance. But then when it comes to heavy, wet leaves like we have here, because it's always raining, it's, there's no comparison with using a backpack blower. The backpack blower is the way to go. And thus, using the handheld blower in place of a backpack blower when doing leaves is where those efficiencies then start to hurt you, because yes, you're taking that mower or that blower, and yes, you can pull it out easier and you can start it while you're walking and all that, but then you're going to spend so much more time because of the lack of power to try to corral all those leaves, especially when they're wet and heavy, to get them into piles and stuff to clean up if that's what you're doing. Whereas, yes, the backpack blower would take longer to start, maybe more inconvenient to pull out, but when it comes to leaves, it makes short work of them, and it's very, it's what it's designed for. So obviously, the reason that you have a backpack blower, or that they've put a blower in sort of a backpack configuration, is because they can put a much larger motor on it. They can put a much larger fan on it. The diameter of the fan is just huge versus the handheld blower, and thus the need to have it on your back versus carrying it. It'd be very awkward if you can imagine a backpack blower the way it is, but without the shoulder straps and having a sort of a fixed tube sticking out the side of it as a sort of a giant handheld. It'd be very awkward and heavy to be wheeling that around with your wrist trying to blow. So that's why, when you sort of make that jump in power and CFMs, that it needs to be on your back. And for those particular jobs, there is no comparison. So where else does the two different configurations of blowers, where do they shine? Well, like I said, with a handheld blower, for me at least, it was on the weekly maintenance of, sort of that week to week, just mowing, blowing, trimming, that sort of jobs where you're just blowing the grass clippings off the sidewalks and stuff like that, versus, large heavy jobs like leaf cleanups and that sort of stuff. That's where you would want to use a backpack blower, is in the fall through heavy leaf cleanups and that sort of stuff. Also, if you are doing large properties, and you're doing maybe large commercial properties, parking lots, things like that, where there's a lot of walking involved, then again, you want a backpack blower because, with me, like I said, I'm doing small residential homes. It's easy for me to jump on a handheld blower for 3 minutes. It's not a big deal. But if you're blowing for 15, 20 minutes, large commercial properties, large homes, acreages, that sort of stuff, then you want a backpack blower because you will quickly fatigue fighting the centrifugal force of the handheld blower. And wielding that around on your wrists all day long. For me, it's not a big deal because, like I said, at the most, I'm using the blower for maybe 2-3 minutes, and that's it. So not a big deal with a handheld blower. But then again, that's another reason for leafs and using the backpack blowers, because it takes a longer time to growl those leaves and stuff, and using a handheld blower just gets very tiring. So you want to use a backpack blower for any situation where you're going to need to blow for a long period of time, any situation where you're moving a lot of debris, any situation where you have to do a lot of walking. Again, that sort of goes together with the blowing for a long period of time. It just makes it more comfortable in that sense, and that's where the time saved in pulling out a handheld blower and being able to start it while you're walking and that sort of stuff is sort of negligible, is when the job becomes bigger than the handheld blower can, easily handle. But another spot where handheld blowers shine is in tight quarters. There's been lots of times where I've been doing hedge trimming and things like that, where I'm up against a building and I have to get in behind there, and just having a big backpack blower on your back and trying to blow and wield the tube can sometimes be so inconvenient and just so tight that you can't get stuff going where you need to. There's been times in the past where I've actually taken off the backpack blower, back when I was using only the BR500, and I would take off the backpack blower and hold it in one hand and try to use the tube throttle to blow in those tight quarters. And, it worked a little bit better, but still wasn't the same as using a handheld blower. With a handheld blower, you can get right in, between those buildings, those bushes. You can get down low, up high, in between. You can, maneuver it around corners that you may not be able to get your whole body through, especially if you've got a big blower on your back. It can make it, a lot easier for that. So the handheld blowers, have a lot of versatility, especially if you pick one up that has that vacuum mulcher kit. May not be something you use all the time, but it's just a nice option as well. If you want just a straight blower, you don't want to bother with a vacuum mulching kit. It's not something that, floats your boat, although they are fantastic for, say, river rock beds and things like that. You can just vacuum them all up. Any of the debris and leaves and stuff that get stuck in there. It works great for that, for gravel beds, rock beds, that sort of stuff. You learn how to feather the throttle so that you're sucking up debris and not the rock. I found that they work fantastic for that. But you may not want to deal with that and want to opt for, the power of having, a dedicated handheld blower, like that PB2520 that don't offer the mulching kit, but have are touted as the most powerful handheld blower on the market currently. And it's a great machine. I have loved using it. It is my go-to machine, and it is the main machine that I see using for this foreseeable future. The other thing that I'll touch on now, I've never had an issue, so to speak, but I had a slight issue with the still that I was using, the BR500, as it got older in age, just before it got stolen. Actually, just a few weeks before, it started to leak fuel, and I think it was just from the one of the fuel lines getting older and brittle. That machine at that point was probably about 10 years old, and when it got stolen, and it started to probably developed a crack or something in one of the fuel lines, and it started to drip fuel down my back. And it wasn't like it was tons of fuel, but enough that at the end of the day, you would smell your clothes and you could smell the fuel mix in your back. So that, of course, is a huge safety hazard. And something I've thought about as well is, having a machine like that, that is gas powered, that is full of fuel, and you've got it strapped to your back. So, I don't know of any, I don't think I've ever heard of any cases of a machine like that, a backpack blower, catching on fire, and, injuring somebody. I'm sure there probably is. I've never heard of it, but it's something that's always, been on my mind, especially when it started to leak fuel, that last, few weeks or so that I had it. And it was just like, something that I had to replace, obviously, had to pull apart, but it was, the busy season, you're just like trying to get things done, and it's just something that's like, you gotta put it on the list, but you just, it's working, you don't get around to it, but one of those things. At any rate, it's just something that I've always thought about, where the handheld blower just, edges out the backpack blower, sort of in that safety sense, because, you're using it in your hand. You can see it. It's in front of you. If something were to go wrong, you'd see the smoke, you'd see the flames, and you can just basically, drop the blower on the ground, versus, something that's mounted on your back. You may not see if something's going wrong. You may not see the smoke. You may not see the flames starting before it's too late, and it has already caused some serious injury to yourself. So just something to sort of think about as well. But like I said, I've never had an issue with it, and it doesn't and I haven't heard of somebody else having an issue with that, and it doesn't prevent me from using a backpack blower. It's just something that you gotta sort of make sure that stuff is maintained, and look into, if you do have that situation like mine where lines got kind of brittle, that you look after it sooner than later, and make sure that is something that is taken care of right away. And that's another reason where having a second blower, a handheld blower, is fantastic too. Even if you do prefer using a backpack blower, or vice versa, is that if one of them, something happens, you can always just, stop using it and take the other one and use that until you have time to deal with that particular issue. And that was the issue with mine, was I just couldn't afford the downtime at the moment. And, by the time I would finish a work day, the dealer was closed. I couldn't go get a part for it. And so it sort of prolonged, and I was like, I'll just wait. It's, heading into the summer season at the time. And it was like, I'll just wait till the lawns dry out, slow down, where I'm mowing only every couple of weeks, and then I can take care of it. And that was, about a week or two away, from happening before the, machine got stolen. So, that was the situation I was in at that time. But yeah, just something to think of as far as, sort of that safety part of it. So I think that about covers the differences between the two. If you're just starting out, if your budget is limited, as you know from my 3-piece equipment challenge that I did an episode of last year, where I started running my business strictly with just the 21-inch mower, the trimmer, and a handheld blower. I think starting out with just a handheld blower is fantastic. You can always step up to a backpack blower, but if you're like in the springtime and you're just starting out, then doing that handheld blower, I think, is completely acceptable. It'll get you through 90% of the season. It'll get you through the whole season, but it's you lose that efficiency once those leaf cleanups start. It's going to take you a lot longer if that's your only blower that you're using. You really do want to step up to a backpack blower for leaf cleanups at the very least. If that's the only time you use a backpack blower and it sits the rest of the year, it's still well worth investing in a backpack blower just for leaf cleanups and using a handheld blower the rest of the year. That is my current setup. I use the handheld blower for 90% of everything I do, and then the backpack blower I will bring out for the month of October to do the mowing with the cleanups and the leaves and all that sort of stuff. And that's pretty much it for that one. So, blowers have come a long way. Still has been, both Still and Echo have been pretty aggressive with their offerings, as well as the other companies. From here in Canada, I would say Still is probably the most popular brand for blowers. We at least here on the West Coast, I haven't seen Red Max models, which seem to be the most popular go-to blower in the United States, at least from what I've seen on YouTube and Instagram. But that new Echo model seems to be very aggressive towards competing with the Red Max. It's very similar in design as well, with sort of having the air filter, what looks like an air filter area on top of the blower, like the Red Max models. Looks very, very similar in that design. But now with the announcement of the BR800 that I've seen from that Still Summit, that a lot of those, the Brian's Lawn Maintenance, the B&B, and a lot of those guys went to and were showing off. Very impressive as well, and very innovative with that left-handed pull start, where basically it sort of addresses that efficiency issue that I was talking about of having to pull the backpack blower out, set it on the ground, close the trailer, put your foot on it, pull the cord, get it started. It was a huge efficiency killer. Not to mention, if you were in the middle of blowing with a backpack blower and a client comes out to talk to you, and then you got to shut off to listen, to talk to the client, see what they're asking you, and then you got to take the blower off, put it back down on the ground, start it up again. Or if you're, working with a crew, getting somebody else to pull start the blower for you while it remains on your back. Just efficiency killer. So this new Still model, the BR800, comes, they've got two different models. One of them has that pull throttle, new design, and so you're wearing this blower on your back. It's got the tube throttle on the right hand side as usual, but the pull cord now is on your left side and on the inside, not the outside of the blower, where it would traditionally be on the outside, right in the middle of the motor. It's now on the inside and on the left, and you can reach it with your left hand. So you can actually just reach behind you while you have the blower and you pull the cord, and it's got some sort of easy starting technology in there because it looks super effortless from the videos that I've seen, where you just pull that cord and they're pulling it pretty gently and the blower starting up. So you're able to keep it on your back. You can shut it off, talk to a client, and just pull that cord yourself on your left-hand side, and it'll start the motor back up. I've also seen a model from Still as well that was a electric start. So it had a button on the tube throttle that you could press. I guess it has a built-in battery that lets you start it up with just a push of a button. Again, obviously another easy thing. So Still seems to be very aggressive and very thinking about that whole efficiency of the machine and how they can make it better in that attempt. And Echo as well, being pretty aggressive, but more with the horsepower and the amount of airflow and CFMs, and just making sort of a beast of a blower. To be able to move the heavy leaves and the large debris sort of fields and cleanups and things like that you may need to deal with. So lots of great options. It's great to see these manufacturers, sort of thinking outside the box and stepping up, particularly with that pull start on the left from the Still. I think it's a fantastic feature and addresses that because, like I said, now you could theoretically, if I had a model like that, I could theoretically open the trailer door, pull it out, put it directly on my back, close the trailer, and start walking to wherever I needed to while pull starting it using that pull cord on the left-hand side. Gives you all the advantages. Well, not all of them, but gives you, a lot of the advantages of a handheld blower in that efficiency sense. But with the power of a backpack blower. The only sort of thing you would lose there is sort of the ease of transport, as far as, like I said, where I have to park far away and then I gotta, it's just easier for me to throw a handheld blower on top of the mower and carry that around. As well as sort of using it for tight quarters, behind hedges, between buildings, things like that. Just easier to maneuver a handheld blower. The other thing for transport is, if you want to carry a blower with you on your ride-on. If you're, on a zero turn or something, it's a lot easier to have a handheld blower there. I've even thought about doing that with my Honda and, having some hooks welded up on the right-hand side of the handle that I could hang my handheld blower from, so that not only would it make it easier for me when I'm moving from, my truck to a house if I have to park far away, but then also it makes it readily available there to blow something if I need to wherever I am. I can just take the, blower right off the side of the handle there, I blow something, hang it back on there, keep mowing, and just, wouldn't add a lot of weight with a handheld blower, but I think it would just be super efficient to have some sort of a system there to hang a handheld blower off the side of, a push mower. So just some ideas there, just some, hopefully that'll help you guys decide on what type of blower is best for you to use in your lawn care business. But ultimately, I would say I would recommend to have both a handheld and a backpack blower. You will find individual uses that are fantastic for both. For me, I prefer using that handheld blower for the weekly maintenance when it's just lawn cutting and all I'm doing is blowing grass clippings off sidewalks and driveways and stuff, and then switching to the backpack blower when I need to do large cleanups in the fall with the wet heavy leaves. So that's it for this week, guys. Here's to wishing you guys all overwhelming success and freedom in your lawn care business. Bye for now.